I think the two main problems that Michigan is facing right now is first, we need to change our policy about hard drugs because, first of all, that's a state issue, and as a libertarian, I feel that they should be legalized for better or worse because mainly that'll eliminate like 25% of the criminals that are in prisons right now, which would drastically reduce their costs. And I also think that we need to have an education system overhaul. I think that we need to eliminate schools that are in areas, I think we need to integrate and combine a lot of different schools. I think we need to reassess the number of teachers we have. I think we need to better distribute the resources that we have instead of stockpiling a lot in high-performing areas. We need to reinvest into the low-performing ones. Yeah.
All right, to make up the $1 billion that we need to cut from the funding, I think that we need to really cut down on road construction in Michigan. I've been going to Northern Michigan University for 4 years, and I have yet to take a trip home or back to the school without running into at least 3 detours every time, all on roads that are perfectly acceptable and don't need to be constructed on. Also, I think that the school, state, and surrounding areas need to cut back on the salt and sand that they put down, considering 2 weeks ago they put down salt and sand on a 57-degree day when it was not needed on the roads. And lastly, I think that they could make up a lot of the money that they're missing and desperately need if they were to legalize marijuana. Seems like a drastic measure and probably thinks, oh, this girl's a druggie, so she shouldn't be doing that. But in actuality, I don't use. I just think that the United States could profit by a lot and to make up most of our deficit, let alone Michigan's deficit.
Well, for one, I think the state of Michigan needs to cut back on road construction. They should start putting weight limits on their roads. That way their roads aren't torn up all the time. They could put toll roads in there, gain some money that way. They should quit funding upward bound programs for those students that claim they are poor when they're clearly not. That way, I could have gotten my promised scholarship and not have taken out more loans.
Okay, because Michigan is $1 billion in deficit, I think that we should cut both taxes and spending. Cutting taxes will make the economy better as to increase the flow, which will increase revenue to the government. Now, spending needs to be cut in certain areas. I think it needs to be more restrictive on the welfare programs. I think that bridge cards, a lot of those can be cut. I know a lot of people that with bridge cards that don't really need them or use them for useless things. I think that that could create a lot more money for the government if they cut that spending. Certain welfare is needed. A lot of people use, I think that we should be more restrictive on welfare. I think that a lot of people that don't need welfare get welfare. Also unemployment, that's a big thing that can be cut or shortened. I think that if you don't help the poor will help themselves. So if you're giving someone unemployment for X amount of time when they could be looking for a job, or some people look for a job, but they're not actually looking for a job. Like I know people that just wait to really look for a job until their unemployment runs out. But it's a really bad decision. If you didn't have a job, you go get a job right now. But if you have unemployment, you're waiting and you're wasting the money of the government and you're just spending it. Although I do think that I think that more people shouldn't be able to get bridge cards. Like people that are their parents still claim them in their taxes and they make 6 figures. I know people like that have bridge cards. I think that should be looked into. I think that in order to get a bridge card, your parents shouldn't be able to claim you on their tax form.
Okay, the first thing I think Michigan should definitely consider is legalizing marijuana and possibly other hard drugs. I think that if we taxed pot, or whatever you'd like to call it, and other hard drugs, we could gain a lot of revenue through that. We'd obviously have to do other steps to get back from where we are with the deficit, but that's one idea. Also, I think that getting rid of the 3 strikes you're out rule, in which case that if a person is committing 3 felons that they're put into jail for life, I think that rule needs to be re-looked at because our prisons spend a ton of money, and if we were to cut back on prison sentences for people who, let's say, were caught selling pot 3 different times and were put in jail for the rest of their life, if we were to cut back on that or legalize marijuana or whatnot, we would be saving a lot of money on that as well. I also think that if Michigan were to go to a part-time legislator instead of a full-time legislator, it would be beneficial as well. You look at the state of Texas, who has a part-time legislative system or body, they're doing fine. depending on what side you are or what perspective you're looking at it from. But I think that we would save a lot of money through that as well, cutting back on the legislative pay. That would also be really helpful to get back that $1 billion deficit. And obviously all of these things we put into play. It's not going to be one major thing that's going to get us out of the mess that we're in currently, but I think if you do some of the things I talked about, such as legalizing marijuana and other hard drugs, getting rid of the 3 strikes rule, and part-time legislative body, then we would definitely be on the road to getting back to maybe a surplus one day.